So let's look at the term yoga. And we will get back to the list that you made and we'll see how it fits into this scheme. Now in Sanskrit, words have roots. It's like a shortened version that has a general meaning, and then by adding vowels and consonants to this root, we turn it into verbs, nouns, etc. And all those verbs and nouns will carry meanings that are connected to the meaning of this root. So, for example, let's say, well, I'm sitting on a chair, and in English, chair is C-H-A-I-R. So let's make a root out of it. It'll be C-H-R, okay? So if we had the equivalent thing in English, then chair would be what we sit on. Chari, let's say, would be the act of sitting. Chora would be a seat, like a parliamentary seat or something like that. You see, it's like we're taking that root, C-H-R, and we are placing the vowels in different places, and with that we're changing the meaning. And in English, we use two different words for chair and sit and seat. But in Sanskrit, it would all come from the same root. Another example. Let's say the word walk. W-A-L-K. So the root of that would be W-L-K. And then if English would work in the same way of Sanskrit, then maybe legs, because they're what we used to walk, would be called walik. And paths, trails, would be called, sometimes we call it walks, but imagine like the actual trail, wallaks. And let's say the stones out of which the path is made would be called waliks or something like that. So that's how roots basically work. Now the Sanskrit noun yoga is derived from one of two roots. The root yuj, which means in English to attach, to join, to harness, to yoke, or from the root yuj samadhau, which means to concentrate, to coalesce. But let's focus for a moment on the meaning of yoke. So the word yoga originally has the same meaning and origin as the English yoke. What is a yoke? What does it mean to yoke? The yoke, as a verb, is the wooden beam normally used to connect a pair of oxen or horses, or sometimes a single ox or horse, to pull a load like a cart or to connect them to a plow. Yoke can also be a verb. Then it means the action of connecting the animal to the load that they are carrying. In the oldest Indian text we have, the Rig Veda, parts of which were composed as early as 1900 BC, and that spans about 10,000 verses, the word yoga in all of its various forms and synonyms appears around 20 times in the entire text. I went and I actually counted. The numbers differ depending on how you count it, because are you counting yuj as well, which is the root of yoga, or only when it's in the form of yoga? We'll leave out the actual counting. But if you encounter different numbers, some people say only 3 times or only 6 times. Some people will say 26, 29. It depends on how you count it. Now, of these 20 or some mentions, the term at times and mostly literally refers to yoking of horses to various carts and things. At other times, it is literally used as a military term regarding how soldiers join forces before battle. And that's the yuj samadhau versus the yuj yoking. So it's possible that if you went to India a few millennia ago and asked someone for yoga, that you would end up in a military encampment just before battle, or in a field helping some farmer plow his field, or at least connect his cattle to the plow. But while in some of these references in the Vedas, the text does seem to imply that they are talking about actual horses and an actual cart, which might be mundane, a human one, or one used by various Vedic gods, like to move across the heavens. Although at times it is literal, the term is also used as a metaphor for the connection of man to God, such as the following verses. Rig Veda, Book 1, Chapter 51, Verse 10. The might which Usana hath formed for thee with might rends in its greatness and with strength both worlds apart. O hero souled, the steeds of Vata, yoked by thought, have carried thee to fame, while thou art filled with power. Or Rig Veda, Book 1, Chapter 84, Verse 3. Slayers of Vritra, mount thy car, thy bay steeds have been yoked by prayer. May, with its voice, the pressing stone draw thine attention hitherward. Or the most classical shloka where harnessing thought is mentioned, which is Rig Veda, Book 5, Chapter 81, Verse 1. The priests of him, the lofty priest, well skilled in hymns, harness their spirit, yea, harness their holy thoughts. But if we want to find the point in time where the word yoga becomes synonymous with some type of spiritual process, then we need to look much later. The first text to really use the term in a similar way to how we use it today is the Katha Upanishad, which was written sometime around the 3rd century BC. In this text, we find one of the first instances where yoga, as a process of control of the mind, is related to this metaphor of connecting horses to carriages, essentially explaining for the first time this metaphor that we find in the Rig Veda. Know the self to be the master of the chariot and the body to be the chariot. Know the intellect to be the charioteer and the mind to be the rein. The senses they speak of as the horses, the objects within their view, the way. When the self is yoked with the mind and the senses, the wise call it the enjoyer. Katha Upanishad, Book 1, Chapter 3, Verses 3 to 4. The man who has a discriminating intellect as his driver and a controlled mind as the reins reaches the end of the path, that supreme state of Vishnu. Katha Upanishad, Book 1, Chapter 3, Verse 3.9. When the 5 senses, along with the mind, remain still and the intellect is not active, that is known as the highest state. They consider yoga to be firm restraint of the senses. Then one becomes undistracted, for yoga is the arising and the passing away. So yoga is a yoking, and yoking denotes a connection or a connecting with subordination, with subjugation. But what is connected to what? And what is subjugated to what? We'll find this out in the next lecture.